Hey guys, welcome to an FSX video. Today I'm flying Wild Alaska, and this is the Carenado Cessna 185F variant. I'll show you around the aircraft. And this paint job is Jim Tweedo's paint scheme from Flying Wild Alaska. If you ever watched the Discovery Channel series, just an incredible airplane. It does feature a 300 horsepower Continental 520, so I hope you guys enjoy this flight. Let's get it loaded up. So I'll close up the door and the baggage compartment here. One cool thing is you can remove wheel chocks, pitot cover, the prop engine cover, and I'll leave the packages in the cargo pod. Down there, the cargo pod, it can carry about 300 pounds according to the manufacturer that I saw. They're pretty expensive. They run at like $3,000 or $7,000, depending on who makes it. But it can haul a lot of weight, and there's no problem in this aircraft. The 185, you can see it's a 6-seater technically. You can see the bench seat or the kiddie seat back there. Very, very small space. So unless you're really short or a kid, it's pretty hard to fit back there. So some pilots actually convert this to just a 4-seater and put cargo back there. So I got 3 passengers aboard, about 200 pounds of weight of cargo down in the cargo pod, and it should be absolutely no problem. This thing has an immense amount of power. Alright, so let's get the engine started. So I'll get the master and battery on, and we'll prime it. It's not too cold out, so 2 shots should be just right. Let's check the temperature. Yeah, it looks like it's about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, so not bad. The weather is really nice, not a cloud in the sky. There's a good amount of wind. Let's check here, 303 at 14 knots. So what I like to do is put the autopilot heading bug over to where my wind is, so I always know where it is. Alright, let's get the fuel pump on. I'll get the prop on full. And I'll get the mixture on as well. Beacon should be on. Let's check it out. Yeah, you can see it on there. I think I left the nav lights on. Don't need those for daytime flight. Alright, first thing we want to check is the oil pressure, which is coming up. Alright, good start on the engine. And one cool thing about this aircraft is that there is you have a full pilot's operating handbook here. It gives you all the information that you need to know, just like in the real aircraft. You use your checklist, obviously. Alright, so seat belts locked, showing harness adjusted and locked. We'll check the fuel valve is on both. Brakes test and set, electrical equipment's off. This is before start. We'll check the flaps real quick, all the way down and all the way up. Those are working. Make sure you check both. And we'll set the cow flaps on full open. And I should have done this before the engine start. And tail wheel is unlocked. One unique thing about the 185 is it does have a tail wheel lock, so you can back is in the lock position, up is in the unlocked position. Alright, so as soon as we get the engine started, we want to turn the fuel pump off. Okay, we checked the oil pressure. It's looking good. Alright, cool. Running about 50% fuel right now. Gives me probably 3 hours of flight time, so it's only a 20-minute flight. Shouldn't be bad at all. Alright, before it's takeoff, we're going to get on the brakes here. Make sure fuel selector is on both, which it is. Flight controls free and correct. Alright, that one goes down, it goes up. It goes up, and it goes down. Elevator up, elevator down. Check the rudder. So you just want to make sure all the cables are connected and haven't snapped. We'll check the rudder out. You can see the cables moving down there, and the elevator, so flight controls look good. Alright, cow flaps are full open. Throttle setting 1700. So what we're going to do is get on the brakes. We'll move the throttle up to 1700 RPM, and we'll make sure that our magnetos are operating correctly. So there's 1700. And I'm just going to hit the M key, and I'll go to the right magneto. You can hear the engine change just a bit there. Back up to both. Down to left. Very slight reduction there. You don't want more than 150 RPM drop between magnetos. And obviously, the reason we do that, the magnetos cause the ignition and fuel the spark plugs essentially with electricity. It's a self-sustained system. You don't need an electrical system at all, so the engine can keep running even if your electrical system completely is shot out. So if your right magnetos aren't working, your left ones are the backup, and vice versa. Typically you want both of them working on a flight. If you don't have one pair working, then you're going to terminate that flight and get maintenance done on it. Alright, so let's go ahead and cycle the propeller. I should have shown you this with the engine off, but you can see the reduction in RPM there. And what the RPM does is it just changes the pitch of the propeller, so this is really fine, and it's taking small bites of air. And then as we move the prop back, it actually increases the angle, so it takes a bigger chunk of air, and that's helpful up at high altitude where the air is thinner. It also helps you conserve fuel at higher altitudes. Alright, so engine's checked in the green. Airspeed's almost 0. I think we're reading the wind right now. We'll make sure that corresponds with our compass, so that's about 280 or so. Yep, we're doing good there. 10 degrees up on the attitude. Altimeter is at field elevation. Looks like 29.76 or so. And ball's centered. Wing leveler is level, and vertical airspeed is reading 0, so that's good. Fuel's good. Oil temperature is holding good. Here's the oil temperature. Cylinder head temperature is good, and our engine gas temperature is good as well. So everything's in the green. Oil pressure is nice and high there. That's what we want to see. Alright, suction gauge. If you guys know where the suction gauge is in this, I haven't been able to find one. I've looked everywhere for it. So if you can leave a comment, that would be great in this airplane. Usually it's not hard to find in the Cessnas. I'm not even sure if this one has one. Alright, so ammeter. Want to make sure that the alternator is charging the battery, which it's at 0, which means we're not getting a discharge or a charge. So that's fine. Sometimes it's a little bit in the charging position. So that's fine. Throttle. Okay, so I'll move the throttle back to idle. Flight instruments and radios. Let's go ahead and get the radios on. And we're on the CTAF, or Common Traffic Advisory frequency, right now. Radios are set. We're not using VORs or anything like that. We're using the GPS. And down here is the autopilot. You just want to make sure that that's in the off position. Yeah, there it goes. Alright. Windows are closed. Doors are locked. Tail wheel lever as desired, and parking brake release. So one thing when we're doing our run-up, sometimes people do it on the taxiway. This is a short runway. Usually I run my before takeoff check on the ramp, just so you're done with it. You don't have to worry about it. Alright, so takeoff, we're going to use 0 flaps. I don't think we really need. Maximum performance takeoff is about 20. My safe runway takeoff and landing distances is about 1,500 feet. So this airstrip is more than fine. I think it's something like 4,400 feet or so. Alright, we'll set full power on takeoff. Maintain low, tail low attitude. Climb speed about 100 miles an hour. And then we'll unlock the tail wheel when we get up in the air. Alright, so it looks like we're ready to go. And I'll announce on St. Michael's. St. Michael's traffic. What's our call sign here? I guess we're using air or something here. We'll take off from runway, looks like 20. We'll get a nice right crosswind here. Alright. So our call sign is Echo Romeo Alpha 18, or Arrow 18. (91361). We'll use that call sign because nobody knows we're an airliner here. Alright, I like to kind of lock the tail wheel. Sometimes I'll leave it unlocked because of the crosswind. Alright, 91361. Alright, on the brakes. Good RPM. Good manifold. St. Michael's traffic, 91361, departing runway 20, departure to the east. Or to the west, that is. Alright, here we go. Off the brakes, airspeed's alive. We'll get some right aileron in there. A little bit heavy here. And we'll climb at 100. Alright, I like to bring the power back just a little bit so we don't burn as much gas here. And in the climb you want to be about 25 manifold, 25, 50 on the RPM according to the manual. So there's 2550. And looks like we'll be departing straight out here. And you can see the cow flaps open down there at the bottom of the engine. So we're heading southwest, and we use an acronym called SWEVEN, which is south and all of west is even plus 500 if you're above 3,000 feet AGL or above ground level. And I forgot the seatbelt thing.
Please fasten your seatbelt.
I never really do that. I think I was just distracted with the video here. But it just tells all the passengers. Part of the FAA regulations, even in a small airplane, is that the pilot has to brief the passengers to put on their seatbelts and ensure that their seatbelts are on during takeoff and landing phases of flight. Now, typically a small airplane like this, you're just going to keep your seatbelt on the entire time. Those regulations are the en route cruise. Obviously, in an airline, you can take off your seatbelt unless it's turbulent, and you can go use the bathroom and things like that, right? All right. So, very short flight over here to the west or southwest. And that wind is coming from our right, you can see there. it's going to really try to push us. So we want to crab a little bit into the wind. That means we just point the nose into the wind. And we'll keep on our climb, and I'll see you in cruise. Alright, so coming up on our altitude here, 4,005. Go ahead and level here. I am using Bernt Stolle's FDE, or flight, I think it stands for Flight Dynamic Environment. It's basically the flight model. A lot of people, I guess, complained about the original Carenado flight model, and Bernt does a lot of flight models for various professional aircraft, and he did one for this, so I downloaded that. Alright, so coming here, we're going to do 22 on the manifold, and I go ahead and bring the prop back. So one thing about a constant speed propeller is you want to adjust the power first if you're reducing power, and then the prop. Alright, so there's 2222. And I'll go ahead and set the autopilot to the on position. And I'll put our nav track on. One thing about Carenado aircraft, they do not like to stay trimmed. They either like to climb or descend, I've noticed, no matter what you do. And the autopilot in this is just directional. It doesn't have any type of pitch control. What a beautiful airplane. So it's kind of nice in this flight. We're staying close to land somewhat. Alright, so once you get the power set and the prop set, we want to go ahead and reduce the mixture. You can see our fuel flow here. We're burning 15 gallons per hour. We're going to reduce our fuel flow for the thinner air, and that just mixes less fuel with the thin air up here so you don't overgas the engine. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the fuel does cool down the engine, so if you lean it too much, you can get some overheating issues. Usually I like to lean around 12 gallons per hour there on the fuel flow indicator. But what you're shooting for is maximum RPM. If the engine starts running rough, like here, you can hear the engine roughness. That means you have the mixture with too lean. When it sounds nice and kind of clean, that tells you have a good mixture setting. Alright, so 2222, and our fuel flow is right around 12 gallons an hour. And we're nice and stable at 4,500. So I will see you guys when we get closer to landing at Kotlick. Nice cruise speed here of about 135 knots, so not bad for this airplane with a 200-pound load on the bottom here. Alright guys, so we're about 16 nautical miles away from the airport here, and you'll notice two airports. Well, before I talk about that, I'll talk about our descent. There's a rule called the rule of threes, and I've ascended here just a little bit. And what it is you just take your altitude and basically times it by 3, and that'll give you the distance that you should start your descent. Now there is a airspeed calculation in there, but just roughly. So I know at this speed, at about 140 knots, 15 nautical miles away, for me to descend about 5,000 feet. at about 700 feet per minute. So you just kind of do the math and you can determine where you should start your descent. And what that does is it gives you a nice descent down to the runway, and we'll check the after you do it a while you kind of get a sense for it, but we'll check the airport elevation here. About 15 feet, so pretty much sea level. So what I'm going to do is bring the power back just a little bit. While I do that, I'll do my descent. Well, we'll do our before landing checklist in a little bit. This is called the letdown procedure. So we can enrich the mixture, but we'll keep it down for now. We'll keep it as is for now. And cow flaps are closed at this point. You want the cow flaps closed in the descent because you typically tend to gain a lot of airspeed and the engine's idling, so you don't want to overcool the engine, right? On takeoff, you want the cow flaps open because they allow airflow into the engine and allow it to cool down. So you can see we're landing at 2 Alpha 9, which is Kotlick. I'm sorry, I kept saying Kotlick. But there is another airport called Kilo Oscar Tango, or KOT, and I've noticed in Alaska there's a lot of closed runways. So I just imagine that, you know, deterioration after a while, they just have to open up a new little strip. And so if I tune in, for instance, to if I go back to the airport list, you see KOT here. You'll notice that there's no runway that's able to be selected, and that's because the runway's closed. So we'll land on runway 20 just like where we took off. We'll have a right crosswind. Now it's full stop, and now it's our position. Passengers are getting a little freaked out because of the turbulence here. So in turbulence, you don't want to be in that yellow arc. So we'll go ahead and slow ourselves down. Around 3,000 feet right through here, I'll go ahead and go full mixture and get the RPM full up as well. So we're 2 minutes away. You can see we're descending nicely here. And we'll do our before landing checklist. So a mixture to rich. Fuel selector on both, which is typical for Cessnas. Pipers, you'll have to go left, right. Cow flaps are confirmed in the closed position. Propeller high RPM. And want airspeed to be 85 to 95 miles an hour. Wing flaps as desired, below 110. Airspeed 75 to 85. Okay, trim is set. And tail wheel should be unlocked or locked, depending on your preference here. Disable the autopilot, and we're 6 miles away. Kotlick traffic, Cessna 91361, 6 miles out, 2,000 feet, landing runway 20, coming in from the northeast. Alright, so the airport should be just beyond that, oh, nice wind shear here. Just beyond that river. I think we can see it down there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. Should be the one on the left if there's 2 of them. Yeah, that's got to be it. Alright, so I know we're going to be expecting a nice right crosswind here. Get the landing light on. Alright, so before landing checklists are complete. And one trick you can do is, it's counterintuitive, but you can actually bring the nose up to slow down. And then just maintain that speed. Alright, so we'll get on the white arc here. Couple notches of flaps. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and throw them all down because we are pretty high here on final. This thing should descend nicely. And looks like we're still high. So it looks like we're going around. Kotlick traffic, Cessna 913, 61 going around. And you can see the X down there. That's the closed runway, right where that river bed is. 2X's mean it's completely closed. So pretty cool to flight some models at. Alright, let's climb back up to 1,000. Come back in. Alright, so there's the runway here. Yeah, we're doing pretty good here. 1,000 foot pattern altitude. That wind's going to want to push us to the right, so I'm trying to grab in them just a little bit. Alright, I get the power down, started descent here. First notch of flaps in the Cessna is usually as good past about 110 knots. Instructors won't tell you that because they want you to be in the white arc no matter what. I'll go ahead and extend number 2. Get some rudder in this turn here. Keep forgetting my tail number here. Kotlick traffic, Cessna 91361, left base, runway 20. Check the final approach lane for any traffic. Looks like we're good. And I was reading, there's an insurance guy that insures Cessna 185s and flies and owns one. And he said really, the accidents that he gets has to do with 3-point landings, a lot of ground looping, prop strikes, all sorts of nasty stuff. And one thing he's learned talking to veterans of the Cessna is really doing a 2-wheel landing, which is when the 2 front wheels touch down first. And the way he accomplishes that is about 50 to 60 knots in normal conditions, 60 to 65 knots under windy conditions. I'll go ahead and extend the 3rd notch of flaps here. Okay, I'm going to kick the left rudder out and get some aileron in. There we go. There we go. These Tundra tires are pretty bouncy. It's just the way they are. Nice little crossing there. And we'll get the flaps up for maximum stopping here. You can see that windsock blowing straight across there. And if you don't know, you do want to hold the controls. If you have a tailwind, you want to hold the controls as if the wind is pushing the control wheel. So you can see I'm pushing it forward and to the left because we have a slightly right quartering tailwind. If the wind is coming from in front of you, then you want to go into the wind and leave the elevator neutral. And be careful with braking in this because she does like to nose over. And a lot of times in Alaska, as far as what I've seen, they will just stop on the runway because there's literally nobody around. Alright. Alright, so let's shut her down here. Let's get the parking brake on. We'll turn off the radios. Mixture idle cut off. And ignition master switch off. Go ahead and idle the thing here. Take out the landing light, and I'll bring the mixture all the way back. Alright, let the passengers out here. So that was a pretty fun flight. Hope you guys enjoy me. Join me for more of these Flying Wild Alaska type flights. They are really, really awesome. I hope I can find some off-airport stuff or some really mountain runways and things like that to really take advantage of the bush flying capability of this aircraft. But man, this is an incredible amount of fun. Thank you guys for joining. I'll see you guys next time.